You expend too much of your essence on what does not directly concern you. You observe the shadows of others. Compare yourself to reflections, striving to grasp the rules of existence, the forms of manifestation, the depths of feelings, the objects of desire. You believe that by observing life's dramas from the outside, it is possible to transform your inner world. But this is merely an illusion, holding you in an endless dependency on external clamor. True metamorphoses do not originate in ephemeral conversations with the outer world. They do not come through advice, arguments, or praise. They are born in sacred stillness, when an individual remains alone with their inner space and, for the first time in a long while, asks themselves the eternal question, who am I without all this, without others' expectations, without superfluous words, without the desire to be convenient or understood? If you truly seek to transform your being, you must return your focus inward to your inner temple. It must not wander among the endless labyrinths of others' destinies. It must not dissolve in trivial discussions. It must not depend on anyone's reactions. Attention is fuel for the soul. And as long as you squander it, you cannot move forward toward your true self. Therefore, the first step is not to begin something new, but to cease being scattered. Before you forge a new path, you must withdraw from the swirling commotion. Take a deep pause, stop, and consciously detach from everything that prevents you from hearing your own inner voice. If you feel your life losing direction, the first step should not be to add something new, but to meticulously remove the unnecessary. As long as you are captive to others' noise, conversations, discussions, arguments, advice, news, reactions, you cannot clearly hear yourself, your inner true self. The crowd compels you not to think, but to conform, not to choose, but to follow, not to be, but to seem. The more immersed you are in this endless stream of others' emotions and meanings, the less capacity remains within you for conscious decision, for independently choosing your own path. True wisdom lies in the ability to guide only from the position of an observer. And to observe, one must first detach. This does not mean withdrawing from life, disappearing, or becoming indifferent. It means making a conscious choice of to whom, when, and how much of yourself to reveal. It is about a profound inner distance. Inner distance is the ability to be in the world, but not within every one of its events. It is the choice to remain silent when everyone around is clamoring. It is the skill not to engage in what destroys your essence, even if it happens nearby. When you cease reacting indiscriminately to everything, you gain space. Space for reflection, for planning, for accumulating inner strength. You no longer squander your attention on trifles. You begin to guard it as precious fuel, upon which your next step in the process of self-discovery depends. And then something new emerges. Clarity. You see where you are in your life cycle. You understand where you lose energy. You clearly notice who pulls you away from yourself, from your center. This is the beginning of true transformation. When you don't just close yourself off from external noise, but consciously redirect attention inward to your depths. You no longer try to explain yourself to the world. You create such depth within yourself, such internal wholeness, that the world can no longer ignore it. And here, once you have reclaimed your attention, the next question arises. Where will you now direct all this power, which you previously squandered on others, on external projections? As soon as you create inner distance, you begin to see a curious thing. Most of your energy does not go towards your own life, your own path. You feed others' emotions, others' plans, others' dramas. You try to console, support, explain, correct, save. You live in a mode of endless giving, as if your worth, your place in the world depends on it. But the truth is, as long as you continue to give without measure, without awareness, you cannot build anything within yourself. One who does not retain their internal resources becomes a resource for others, for their scenarios. And if you think generosity automatically makes you strong, you are mistaken. Until you know how to hold back, you have no true power over yourself. Self-focus is not selfishness. It is maturity. It is a conscious choice not to be scattered, not to be convenient, not to be a source for those who offer nothing but disrespect in return. This is the path to authenticity. Look honestly at how many tasks, conversations, and connections you continue to maintain simply because you fear disappointing others, shattering their illusions. How many times do you sacrifice your plans for others' desires? Because it is right. It is expected. Each time you betray yourself out of politeness, you strengthen another's power over your soul. Each time you go against your intuition, you become weaker. Your inner self dims. If you truly seek to change your life, stop being another's instrument, a passive function in the external world. Redirect your energy to what belongs to you, to your inner world, to your true aspirations. Do not waste it on conversations that resolve nothing, on people who do not listen, on connections where you are merely obligated, but not free. All the power you seek is already within you, but it has dissolved into others' stories, into projections onto others. It is time to reclaim it. And as soon as you begin to refuse the role of a resource for others, you will inevitably encounter resistance. People accustomed to your availability will begin to exert pressure, to manipulate. They will try to return you to a familiar, convenient position for them. And here you must understand one more thing, without which further progress is impossible. Most do not want you to change. They do not need your awakening, your self-sufficiency. They need your participation, your constant reaction, your availability. We are accustomed to seeking support externally. It seems to us that there must always be someone nearby, a friend, a partner, a mentor, who will advise, support, pull us from the abyss. We cling to relationships, to words, to the presence of others, like an anchor, without which, it seems to us, we would be swept away by the current of being. But strength does not come from outside. It is formed where a person first remains alone, realizing their wholeness. As long as you are surrounded by advice, reactions, and others' gazes, you cannot understand what truly belongs to you. What is your true path? People, even with the best intentions, more often distract than guide. They intervene even when not asked. They influence even in silence, unconsciously. And in this influence, your own point of balance, your inner compass, is lost. Too often, you keep close those who have long ceased to help you move forward in the direction of your self-discovery. You explain this with loyalty, gratitude, morality, but deep down you know, you fear being alone. And this fear is the main obstacle between you and a new level of life, a new stage of your development. Liberation begins with honesty towards oneself. It is there that will is born, free from external influence, from imposed scenarios. It is there that you first understand. You do not need anyone to confirm your worth, your significance. You affirm it yourself through your presence. Most people cannot endure solitude not because they fear being without others, but because they do not know who they are without constant reactions to the external, without constant reflection in others' eyes. They need a mirror to feel that they exist, that they have a right to be. But maturity is when you can feel truly authentic, without affirmations, without likes, without anyone's eyes opposite you. You are not obligated to be surrounded to be strong. You are not obligated to be understood to be confident. You are not obligated to be near someone to feel supported, because true support is yourself. Who knows how to be with yourself in your wholeness? And when you find this point, this inner silence, in which anxiety, haste, comparison, and dependency vanish, then you can begin to live from a state of strength, not from a state of lack, of deficiency. And now, when you perceive yourself not as an idea, not as a function, but as a whole, as a complete structure, you can stop explaining yourself. You no longer owe anyone anything to prove. You simply live, guided by inner decision, by your own truth. You do not argue, do not justify, do not persuade. You choose. One of the main reasons a person gets stuck in an old way of life, in repeating habitual patterns, is the habit of explaining themselves. Too often, you expend energy not on actions, not on real changes, but on words, on attempts to convince others. You try to convince those around you that you have the right to change, the right to leave, to refuse, to stop, to choose differently. You try to convey your inner decisions to those who are not even interested in listening, who see only their own projections. But with each new explanation, you become weaker, for a person who is still proving their correctness is insecure, incomplete, and one who is truly confident no longer argues. They simply live differently, quietly, firmly, in their own way, according to their inner law. True power manifests not in conversation, but in choice, in actions. You can choose. Either you act or you listen. Either you build or you empathize. Either you move forward or you stand beside those who fear to go. And if you are truly ready for profound change, you will have to be inconvenient for others. You will cease to be available in the usual sense. You will cease to be soft in a way that harms you. And there will be nothing wrong with this, for it is not cruelty. It is strategy. It is a path to self-integrity. And strategy begins with the main question. For what do you awaken each day? What is your true purpose? You were taught that thinking about yourself is bad, that putting your interests first is selfishness, that if you don't respond, don't help, don't participate, you become callous, a recluse. But the truth is, a person who cannot be centered on themselves, on their inner core, sooner or later loses themselves, dissolves into the external. Focus is not a rejection of the world. It is a rejection of chaos, of disorder. It is the choice to be within your own life, not to dissolve into others, not to live by others' scripts. It is the understanding that if you do not direct your attention toward yourself, no one will do it for you. The world will not grant you space. It must be claimed, earned. The world will not leave you in peace, will not grant you tranquility. When you are truly focused, you stop giving warnings. You simply vanish from one place and reappear in another, already different, renewed. Most people make the mistake of announcing beforehand that they intend to change. They talk about their plans, warn of breaks, explain their choices, hoping someone will support or understand. But the truth is, If you are truly ready for change, you do not speak. You act silently, clearly, without feedback, without external reactions. Every warning is a leak of strength. Every explanation is an invitation for pressure, for manipulation. Every discussion is an unnecessary chance to change your mind, to stray from your path. Therefore, the safest way to change your life is to do it quietly, internally. True actions are not discussed. They occur suddenly, from an inner necessity. This is where the true power of an internal strategy lies. You no longer create tension around yourself, no longer attract unnecessary attention. You simply disappear from the old pattern of behavior, from the old script. You do not leave a conflict, nor do you engage in it. You do not explain what you lacked. You do not prove you had the right. You simply step away from a habit, from an environment, from a self-image that no longer aligns with your inner truth, your essence. And at this moment, when you change course without warning, you encounter true silence. Around you, no noise, no reaction, no resistance. You simply move, and with each step, you strengthen your choice, your autonomy. This demands discipline. Silently changing course is harder than dramatically severing ties, harder than loudly announcing, harder than eliciting a reaction. But it is precisely this silent turning that sets you free. For you no longer play the social game, no longer submit to its rules. You no longer wait for permission, no longer look back at others. You do not ask, you do not say goodbye. You do not bargain, you simply depart. And no one knows where, no one interferes, no one obstructs. And in this absolute autonomy, for the first time, you feel not loneliness, but control, not fear, but direction, not emptiness, but strength. And now, having moved away from everything that prevented you from being yourself, the last step remains. Not merely to live differently, but to become the center of your power, to become the source of decisions, to cease being a reaction and to become a direction, to set your own vector. When you cease scattering, justifying, explaining, and proving, an empty space forms within you. Not external, but internal. This is the place where tension, fear, dependency, and chaos once resided. Now, there is silence, calm, wholeness. It is in this stillness that power is born, your inner strength. You are no longer the center of others' expectations, others' projections. You no longer depend on others' gazes, on external approval. You are no longer within a game whose rules you did not write. Now you are at the center, in your own center. It is from this position that true decisions begin. How to live, where to direct energy, with whom to be, about what to be silent, when to speak, and why to move forward. A person is strong not by how many external resources they possess, but by who controls the direction of these resources, how they use them. You may have little, but if you can hold your focus, you win. You may be alone, but if you do not squander yourself on trifles, you cannot be swayed from your path. The center is not a posture. It is not an external manifestation. The center is when you do not rush from side to side. You do not fall into extremes. You do not react to every word. You do not seek approval. You build your path step by step, without shouting, without commotion, without a show, quietly and confidently. You have become the source of decisions, not their reflection, a passive reaction. You no longer wait for a signal, no longer check if you are doing it right. You know where you are going, and that is enough. Now you are not in an attempt to prove. Now you are in a state of affirmation, and in this lies a calm, pure, mature strength. Without illusions, without dramas, without dependency, you have become yourself. From this moment on, no one else decides for you. You spent too much time trying to be convenient, understood, involved. You tried to conform, to listen, to explain, to prove, to be present, to be needed. And each time you acted this way, you lost a part of yourself. Imperceptibly, quietly, day by day, as if leasing out your boundaries, hoping that someone would one day say, "You did everything right." But it did not happen, because understanding does not come to those who constantly explain. It comes to those who one day fall silent and turn their attention inward to their depths. You find strength not when you defeat others, but when you no longer fight with yourself. When you accept yourself entirely, you begin to live differently when you stop reacting, justifying, scattering. When you do not discuss the path, but simply walk. When you do not ask, but choose. When you do not put yourself on display, but create yourself from the essence within. You already know what to do. You know what to cut, what to step away from, in which direction to guide your attention, your energy. You know that the moment has come not to change the world, but to change your position within it. Not to wait for everything to align, but to gather yourself whole, without haste, without noise, without superfluous words. Focus on yourself, not as an idea, but as a project, a life path. Build yourself. Protect your silence. Hold your attention, and remember, in this world, victory does not go to the loudest, but to the one who is so self-assured that they can move in complete silence and still alter the direction of their entire life, guided by an inner compass. And it is from this moment that you become self-sufficient, internally formidable to those who seek to control you. For you no longer need. You choose. You create your own reality.